voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American.
Okay, it is Thursday, January the 22nd. The world travels of Scott Jennings continue. We are in the Arkansas state capitol today here in Little Rock. Why are we in Little Rock? Well, two reasons. I wanted to stop by and see my good friend, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is going to join us for an extended interview in hour number 2 today. And I was invited to Little Rock by Arkansas Right to Life. And tonight, I'm honored to be here and deliver the keynote at Arkansas Right to Life annual day. So thanks for having me here to the natural state. In this hour, 22 minutes past the hour, meteorologist Stephen Parr is joining us to discuss the brutal winter weather that is coming to a big swath of the United States this weekend. At 33 minutes past the hour, Congresswoman Stephanie Bice of the 5th District of Oklahoma. We'll talk Washington stuff and get her reaction to the news of the day. The Scott Jennings Show is brought to you by Ease Total Health. Health insurance is broken. You know that, of course. And Ease fixes it with no deductibles, no restrictions on doctors and hospitals. It is a set of benefits that you can use on day one. Visit easeforeveryone.com/Scott to learn more. It's called Ease, E-A-S-E, Ease Total Health. Let's get to the news, and it is breaking news. Breaking news just into the Scott Jennings Show. Arrests have been made today in Minneapolis in the Sunday morning Baptist church invasion. Those charged include former CNN news anchor Don Lemon. Total of 7 people have been charged so far. These are federal charges. However, reports are saying that a Minnesota federal magistrate judge had initially refused to sign a complaint to bring the charges against Don Lemon, but now it appears to me, and this is breaking now, that a grand jury has in fact indicted Don Lemon anyway. The other Walls warriors who stormed into that Baptist church on Sunday, you've heard some of these names. Nikema Levy-Armstrong, she's charged. The Department of Justice says she played a key role in organizing the coordinated attack on the city's church in St. Paul. Another name you've seen, Chantil Louisa Allen. She's also charged. Coming out now, the aforementioned Levy-Armstrong has been charged with conspiracy to deprive rights for her role in the church riot. Let's take a listen to Levy-Armstrong. She appeared last night on CNN, cut 12.
And I do want to correct something that was said in the beginning. We did not rush into that church. We actually went and sat down and participated in the service. And after the pastor prayed, that is when I stood up and asked him a question in response to his prayer. And then he responded to me. And then I proceeded to ask him about Pastor David Easterwood and how is it possible for him to serve as both the pastor and the director of ICE for Minnesota. And instead of responding to me, as soon as I said the name David Easterwood, the pastor said, "Shame, shame." And that is when I led us in chants, "Justice for Renee Good" and "Hands Up, Don't Shoot."
Well, we'll see if it holds up in court. I don't think it's going to because, you know, we all have eyes and ears. We saw the video for ourselves. These Democrats in Minnesota, though, they just won't quit. They continue to instruct their constituents to put themselves in harm's way and break the law. They are still refusing to cooperate with federal law enforcement when it comes to removing illegal aliens from the community. Let's listen to honorary Somali pirate and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry. Here's what he said yesterday about working with ICE agents. Spoiler alert, he will not do it. Cut number 3.
You don't believe that the federal government is right, that the state of Minnesota, of course, through the governor's office, refuses to give them access to the jails and prisons to collect people that they say are criminal and not supposed to be in the country.
I won't speak for the state. I will let them speak for themselves, but certainly that is what they have relayed. In Minneapolis, we will not cooperate with ICE or any federal agency around immigration enforcement work. We will not. And there's a good reason, by the way, that we won't. And it's not just the moral imperative here. It's also the fact that I want our police officers focusing on safety. I want our police officers arresting perpetrators of violent crime and preventing carjackings from taking place and doing that basic work of 911 response. You know what I don't want our police officers doing? Spending a single minute going after some father who just dropped his kids off at daycare, is about to go work a 12-hour shift, who happens to be from Ecuador.
That's Mayor Jacob Frey in Minneapolis. Let's go back over what he said. Number one, still no cooperation. Minneapolis and federal ICE agents there on the ground. That is the principal cause of all the chaos in Minneapolis to begin with. Number two, he also said the police will not help ICE. And we learned yesterday on this show from Todd Lyons, the director of ICE, that if an ICE agent, if a federal law enforcement officer is in Minneapolis and they get attacked, which has happened many times, if they get attacked in the street while doing their duty, either by a citizen or by an illegal alien, the Minneapolis Police Department will not help. They have been instructed not to help fellow law enforcement officers who are under attack. Now, remember, Jacob Frey, the governor, Tim Walz, and many other people in Minnesota who have elected office, who have positions of authority, have received federal subpoenas and an investigation to find out if they are themselves obstructing the enforcement of federal law in Minneapolis. The big breaking story in Minneapolis, the breaking news. CNN former news anchor Don Lemon and a total of 7 people have been charged in the Sunday morning invasion of the city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota. We'll keep tracking this story throughout the show today and keep you posted on the details. Moving on in other news, the president having a productive trip to Davos at the World Economic Forum. The president says he has secured a deal on Greenland. This deal will allow for the United States to take sovereign control of parts of Greenland where the United States has military bases, and the Danish government will still have sovereignty over the island. So sounds like Trump came up with a win-win here. Here's how political analyst Byron York described it on Fox News. This is Cut 11.
About it, and I have to say, this was kind of classic Trump, wasn't it? I mean, Trump wants something, and then he asks for 10 times that, and the other side flips out, and they go back and forth and go back and forth. It becomes a huge news story. Finally, they make an offer. He agrees to it, and it's kind of what they could have gotten in the first place.
And says they're wonderful people and happy to work with them, and suddenly it's this dismount that we could predict by how it's set up at the beginning.
Yes, and the other side's happy because they think they dodged a bullet. So it's just classic Trump.
Yeah.
Now, the president in Davos has also signed the charter for his Board of Peace. This was the idea that he came up with to manage the ongoing peace process in Gaza. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio says it's more than just a board. It is a board of action when you compare it to what happens at the United Nations. The president did make some extended remarks on the Board of Peace. He also talked about his view of the ongoing peace process. We'll try to bring you those comments a little bit later in the show. Back on the home front, the federal government may finally be able to deport anti-American radical Mahmoud Khalil. The Department of Homeland Security announced last night, that Mahmoud Khalil is going to Algeria. It's a reminder that if you are in this country on a visa or a green card, you are a guest of this country, but not necessarily entitled to stay here forever. Khalil and his attorneys argued for months, challenging the White House on their efforts to remove Khalil, who does have a green card. He is of Palestinian heritage. They said it would violate the Constitution, but an appellate court decision last week was seen as a victory for the Trump administration in this case, and it cleared the way for his removal. This is the Scott Jennings Show. It's common sense for the American people. We're broadcasting live from the state capitol in Little Rock, Arkansas. A quick word from our friends at Relief Factor. You know, one of the most rewarding parts of telling you about Relief Factor is that I'm getting stories from satisfied customers from people all over the country. Stories from people like Sandra. She told us in her letter that she'd been hearing about Relief Factor on the radio for a couple of years. She had pain. She was hearing about this, but it took her a couple of years, and she finally decided to do it. She tried the 3-week quick start, and her letter says, and I quote, "Now I feel like a new person." That's Sandra's own words. It is so gratifying to hear. We can tell you all about something, but when you hear the testimonial from somebody who is using it like Sandra, it means a lot. And it also means that you should try it for yourself. If you've got pain, the 3-week quick start could be for you. It's a game changer. Call 1-800-4RELIEF or go to relieffactor.com and ask yourself, how will it feel to be out of pain? Find out with Relief Factor. A quick break. When we come back, we'll talk winter storm. It's common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings live from Little Rock. Stay with us. And it's Thursday, January 22nd, broadcasting live from the Arkansas State Capitol today. We're glad you're with us. A major winter storm is set to impact a huge swath of the United States from New Mexico to Washington, D.C. Everyone's preparing. With us to discuss is Stephen Parr, meteorologist from Storm Guides Live and a co-host of American Ground Radio. We're going to talk about the big winter storm. Stephen Parr, welcome into the Scott Jennings Show.
Scott, I'm so sorry. I can't hear anything. I've lost any sound coming in, so I didn't hear any of your questions. And I'm not sure what happened because we were just talking.
I haven't asked any questions yet. I haven't asked any questions yet. I was just introducing you. I don't know if you can hear me now or not, but we're ready to hear from you. Okay, sounds like we don't have Stephen Parr. So, as usual, we're running a tight ship around here on the Scott Jennings Show. We'll try to get back to Stephen Parr and the winter storm here in just a few minutes. Let's go back to the top story of the hour. Breaking news out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Federal officials have announced this morning that 7 people, at least so far, have been charged in the Sunday morning Baptist church invasion in Minneapolis. Those 7 people include former CNN news anchor Don Lemon, and that is an ongoing breaking story. We're going to be tracking that for the rest of the show. All right, do we have Stephen Parr back on the line with us?
I can hear you now. So sorry about that.
Hey, all right, look at that. Hey, in the year of our Lord 2026, we're able to make a communication between two human beings that can, if only Alexander Graham Bell were here to celebrate this. Okay, Stephen Parr, you're a meteorologist. Is this the storm of the century that people are saying?
Well, it's probably the biggest winter storm of this century. I mean, we are looking at a big ice storm that's going to be coming through. Starting in New Mexico, we're looking at a foot of snow from Tulsa through Little Rock up towards the East Coast. You can see by the time we get done with Monday night, a foot of snow in New York City. The bigger problem, though, is the ice. We're looking at a half an inch of ice or more from Dallas, Texas, to just north of Houston, all the way through northern Louisiana, north half of Louisiana, all the way through Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, which really is not good at dealing with weather emergencies, Birmingham, Alabama, Atlanta, Georgia. And again, this ice goes up the East Coast a bit. So the problem is the half inch of ice. And that's where we can start looking at problems with power outages. If you get a half an inch of ice, it's going to collect on higher surfaces first. Those are tree branches, those are power lines, and it becomes too much weight. Rain drips off. The ice just accumulates. It gets very heavy, and it will break those power lines. And so what you end up with is power outages that are on the same scale as hurricanes. But instead of coming up out of the Gulf, they're stretched across I-20. And it really is a potential where you could have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people out of power.
Stephen, a couple of questions. So we're going to have this massive ice storm, and what's going to happen in the days after that? Are temperatures going to rise enough to melt the ice, or are we going to have huge areas that are going to have ice on the ground and in the trees for several days?
I think it's the latter. It obviously depends upon exactly where you are along this path, but there are certainly some places where we're going to be seeing freezing temperatures for 2 and 3 days, and so the ice won't have a chance to melt, and that'll make it even harder to get that power back on.
Okay, that's Stephen Parr, meteorologist, who is with us here on the Scott Jennings Show discussing the upcoming ice storm. We've got about a minute to go here, Stephen. Tell us, if you were giving advice to people in the path of this storm, what would it be? What do they need to be preparing for, and how long do they need to be prepared to be snowed or iced in?
For the folks, especially along I-20 from Dallas all the way over towards Atlanta, you need to be prepared to be without power for at least 48 hours. And so you're going to want to have, obviously, water. The grocery stores are starting to look like it's COVID shopping again. And you're going to want to make sure that you have some food that you can cook without having electricity to cook it with. And that's a problem. So making sure you have plenty of food and water. You might want to fill up the bathtub with water tonight, so just in case you need to be able to flush toilets in case your city loses water. And I'm looking at folks in Jackson, Mississippi. They've had that problem several times in the last couple of years. So this could be another problem like that.
All right, Stephen Parr, meteorologist from Storm Guides Live and co-host of American Ground Radio. You can follow him on the X platform at America on Par, and that's Par with 2 R's. Stephen, thanks for the public service weather news for us. We'll be watching this winter storm over the weekend. We're going to take a break. When we come back, shifting into Washington news, we have Congresswoman Stephanie Bice from Oklahoma's 5th Congressional District is set to join us. We'll react to the news of the day with Stephanie. When we come back, it's Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is with you from Little Rock on the Salem Network. Hey, it's Scott. I want to talk to you about our friends at Balance of Nature. You can find them, by the way, at balanceofnature.com. They have this thing called the Balance of Nature Whole Health System. These supplements are perfect for a resolution in the new year. It's kind of tough to stick with New Year's resolutions, and that's why Balance of Nature's Whole Health System supplements are one of the easiest ways to do it. They're very versatile. You do 2 scoops of fiber and spice and mix it easily into drinks, and it adds a warm, aromatic depth. You can also open 3 of your fruit supplements and mix the powder into a smoothie, or sprinkle 3 of the veggie supplements over one of the savory dishes that you're having for dinner. It's called Balance of Nature's Whole Health System. These supplements include 47 ingredients of 100% whole fruits, vegetables, spices, and fibers, perfect for your daily routine. 50% off if you do it now for 1 year when you subscribe to the Whole Health System from our friends at Balance of Nature. Get it at balanceofnature.com. It's Thursday, January 22nd. We are broadcasting live from Little Rock, Arkansas today. We're in the state capitol. Coming up next hour, we're going to interview Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, my old friend and governor of Arkansas, one of the best governors in the country, I think. And she was nice enough to open up the governor's office here for us. So we're bringing the show to you from Little Rock today. Quick word from our friends at Child Help. I want to tell you a story that Child Help, stories like this, that they see all too often. It's about kids logging on to things on the internet after school, in chat rooms, gaming platforms. They're talking to their friends, they're having fun, and then someone else joins the conversation. At the beginning, it doesn't feel wrong. You get compliments and curious questions. Someone's paying attention. But over time, the messages become more personal, then private, then secret, and then uncomfortable. That is how online grooming works. Not with overt force, but with building trust. And this is where Child Help steps in. You know Child Help, we've been talking about them. I personally donate to Child Help. I visited their headquarters. I've met with their executives. I know what they are doing to prevent child abuse in this country. They have life-saving programs that will prevent online grooming, that will prepare parents to stop and recognize the signs of online grooming. And we need your help to make all this possible. For $27, you can protect one child from abuse by funding Child Help's life-saving programs. I would ask you to join me in donating today by texting the word Child Help to 94878. Give $27. That's all it takes. $27. Or you can go to childhelp.org/Scott. That's childhelp.org/Scott. They have tools to deal with online grooming. They run a child abuse hotline. An organization earned my and earn your support. Common sense for the American people here in Arkansas. Scott Jennings is on the road, and joining us now is Oklahoma Congresswoman from the 5th Congressional District of Oklahoma. Her name is Stephanie Bice. Stephanie, welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Thank you, Scott. I'm thrilled to be on. And when you see Governor Huckabee Sanders, tell her I said hello from the great state of Oklahoma.
I'll be glad to do it. She's got friends all over the country. I know that. Well, I'm appreciative of the chance to get to talk the other day. And when I saw part of the Republican committee group that day, you all were on the brink of announcing the plan by House Republicans to bring another budget reconciliation process forward and to move several pieces of legislation and ideas in that process to the House floor. Let me just start by asking you, from that day that we saw each other to now, what has happened in the House? Are we moving forward with budget reconciliation? And is everybody in the conference embracing this process that you all were so excited about today?
Well, yes, I think the excitement around doing another reconciliation package is, I think, something that this conference wants to do. People didn't think we could get the first package across the finish line, and we were able to do it in a very short amount of time, actually. And there was so much in the package, but there's still work left to be done. And so the chair of the Republican Study Committee, my friend from the great state of Texas, August Pfluger, put together what I would consider to be a plan. And it's a menu of options to try to address the things that the American people are still struggling with. Certainly, we know that cost of living continues to be an issue. The president has brought down prices on so many things, including, oil and gas, groceries. We're looking in mortgage rates, interest rates have come down, but there's still more work to be done. So looking at that, looking at healthcare, really insurance affordability, because we have seen insurance prices skyrocket. And there was a lot of conversation as during the government shutdown around the enhanced premium tax credits. But Scott, the reality is that every American is dealing with this, untenable increase in healthcare cost. The Affordable Care Act was supposed to make healthcare affordable. We were supposed to be able to pick our doctors. None of those things have happened. And instead, we've seen insurance companies reaping the profit, and the federal government's really subsidizing it. So I want to know what we're going to, I want to focus on doing something for employer-sponsored healthcare, for Medicare, for TRICARE, not just for a small portion of Americans. And then, there's lots of other things that are going to be codification of President Trump's executive orders that are really important to make sure that businesses have some certainty as they move forward in the future.
Congresswoman Bice, paid maternity leave has been a big issue for you. Do you think something on that front makes it into this reconciliation package, or are you looking at moving it in a separate process outside of reconciliation?
Sure. Paid family leave, which is really what we're referencing it here, is incredibly important. I was fortunate when I had my daughters many years ago to be able to take some time off to bond with my girls and spend that quality time. But there are so many families that don't have that option. And what your viewers may not know is that the United States is one of only 7 developed nations in the world that doesn't have some sort of paid family leave initiative. And so what I've done is really worked to create a framework, a conservative approach to paid leave. It is not a federal mandate. It's actually incentivizing states to partner, do a public-private partnership to start allowing, these families with either newborns or that are looking at adoption to take some time to be with those new babies. We are the pro-family conference, and we want to sort of prove that with this paid family leave initiative. And I think there is a potential for us to be able to get that language into the reconciliation bill. Certainly, as you know, you have to have some sort of fiscal impact. And so we're trying to make sure that we have that and it meets the requirements to be in a reconciliation bill. But we're really excited for the opportunity. We've got tremendous support. As you probably remember, Ivanka Trump sort of took on this challenge when she was part of the first administration, and we weren't quite able to get that across the finish line. So I'm trying to take it up and get it to the president's desk.
Okay, that's Congresswoman Stephanie Bice from Oklahoma. That's the voice you're hearing, one of the brightest lights in the House Republican Conference in Washington, D.C., as far as I'm concerned. Stephanie, I want to get your comment on a couple of breaking news stories. Let's start in Minneapolis. Breaking news today, 7 people have been charged in this Sunday morning Baptist church invasion in Minneapolis. You've seen the video, I'm sure, where these radical protesters burst into a church and terrified the congregation and accosted the pastor and marauded through a worship service while it was underway. It is not clear to me, by the way, what's going on with Don Lemon. I'm seeing conflicting reports that he's been charged, and then some people are saying that a magistrate judge won't sign the complaint. I'm not entirely sure now what the status of Don Lemon, former CNN anchor, is, but it is clear that several people have been charged. What was your reaction when you saw that video of that church invasion, and what is your comment on the Justice Department bringing charges against the people who went into the church?
Well, they absolutely should be charged. The FACE Act should be applied to these individuals for bursting into a church and disrupting the service. We should all be allowed to worship and not have to worry about, I think the terminology that you used last week was the political vigilantism that we're seeing from these radical groups that are disrupting a church service. It's really unbelievable. And so holding these people accountable is important. You shouldn't have to have people posted at the doors of a church to prevent somebody from coming in and disrupting your hours or so of worshiping and praising the Lord. So I'm surprised that this even happened. It's actually really shocking to me. And I'm very glad that the Department of Justice has taken such swift action to address this, because look, you know, we don't want to see this across the country. It's becoming too common, these types of aggressive actions. That's and right. It leads to violence, frankly. You know, I was driving here in D.C. this morning, and there's lots of people that have these resist signs up in their windows of their homes or out front in the yard. And I feel like they're just encouraging violence. And we need to stop. We need to take a step back and recognize that we can have a difference of opinion, but we can't ramp the rhetoric up. And that's what the left has been doing very recently.
Yeah, it's not clear to me what they want to resist, because all we're really talking about here is the enforcement of existing federal immigration law. No new laws have been passed since Donald Trump became the president. These are existing federal immigration laws. We had deportations under all previous administrations, including Democrat administrations, and everybody seemed to be fine with it until Donald Trump started doing it, which, by the way, is no great revelation since he's promised to do it every day of all 3 campaigns that he's ever run. And so I think what's happening in Minneapolis, frankly, is a travesty, and more people are going to get hurt because of what these Democrats are telling their constituents to do. Let's go over to Davos, the president announcing his peace board today. Let's hear cut 9. Guys, this is the president up on announcing and codifying the peace board that he set up to do the Middle East peace process in Gaza.
As everyone can see today, the first steps toward a brighter day for the Middle East and a much safer future for the world are unfolding right before your very eyes. Together we are in a position to have an incredible chance. I don't even call it a chance. I think it's going to happen. To end decades of suffering, stop generations of hatred and bloodshed, and forge a beautiful, everlasting, and glorious peace for that region and for the whole region of the world, because I'm calling the world a region. The world is a region. We're going to have peace in the world. And boy, would that be a great legacy for all of us. Everybody in this room is a
President is having some success, it seems, in moving this peace process forward. We're now in phase 2, according to Special Envoy Witkoff. Congresswoman Bice, what's your reaction to the developments on Middle East peace that the president announced in Davos?
Look, it's a tremendous opportunity for us to, bring everybody together. And I got to praise President Trump for this. I mean, you've heard some of my colleagues reference him as the peace president. And I think it's true. He was able to bring together so many different countries to put forward the Abraham Accords. He's tried to broker a peace deal with Gaza. he doesn't want these conflicts to continue. And he's really, I think, stepping up to the plate and bringing other world leaders together to try to find reasonable solutions to some of these challenges that we're facing. We live in a global society. We need to be able to have tough conversations, but he has really done, I think, tremendous work in bringing some sort of peace and stability to the Middle East. And we're going to have to continue that. The work is not done. And I know that he's committed to making sure that he sees this through.
That voice you're hearing, Congresswoman Stephanie Bice of Oklahoma, one of the bright lights and great policy thinkers in the House Republican Conference. You're going to keep an eye on her. We certainly here are at the show. Stephanie, you have an open invitation. Come by anytime, and we'll keep up with you in the months ahead as the budget reconciliation process unfolds. We're going to take a break. Before we do, a quick word from our friends at Patriot Mobile. This is the correct cell phone company for you, by the way, Patriot Mobile, and here is why. Because when you pay your bill to Patriot Mobile, they invest in causes that you would approve of. This is a Christian conservative organization. I know the executives, their company, they put their money where their values are and where your values are. When you make the switch to Patriot Mobile, you are helping grow a movement that fuels Christian conservative causes across this country. Switching has never been easier. You can keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade it. I don't care. I just want you to get over there to Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/Scott or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code Scott and get a free month of service. patriotmobile.com/Scott or call 972-PATRIOT. Make the switch today. More after this. It's common sense for the American people. Stay with us. Okay, it's Thursday, January 22nd, broadcasting live from Little Rock, Arkansas today. I'm down here in Little Rock because Arkansas Right to Life, great organization, invited me down to give the keynote address to their annual dinner tonight, so look forward to doing that later this evening. And Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's going to join us in the next hour, is gracious enough to let us broadcast this show today from the governor's office. By the way, if you've not been to this Capitol, it is beautiful. This Capitol is beautiful. It's clean. It's immaculate. The people here are incredible. The ladies doing the tours down in the rotunda, the folks down in the cafeteria. We've had amazing hospitality here in the Arkansas governor's office and in the Capitol in general. Okay, I'm going to have to talk about something that happened on the internet yesterday. You may have seen former CNN anchor and current anchor on News Nation, which nobody watches, Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo, you've probably heard of him, New York guy, brother of Andrew Cuomo. He was fired from CNN because he was doing things that violated journalistic ethics practices by advising his brother during some political turmoil. So CNN got rid of him, and now he's at this News Nation. So he puts out a video yesterday, which I'm not going to play. But what he's mad about is that the other night on CNN, I got into a debate with this kid, Cam they call him, Kasky. And you may have seen this on social media. I was using the phrase illegal aliens. Criminal illegal aliens. Illegal aliens. That's what I was saying. Illegal aliens. Common term. It's also a term in the law, by the way. This is what you call people who've come into the country illegally. They're illegal aliens. There's really nothing controversial about this. And this little twerp turns to me on CNN the other night, and he says, "You're not allowed to say illegal aliens anymore." And I said, "Why? How do you, just out of curiosity, plan to enforce this language edict that you're springing upon me?" By the way, I've never met this kid before. Don't know him, never heard of him, have no idea who he is. Not sure how he got booked on a national news program. But anyway, he shows up trying to instruct yours truly, your host, about what you can call people who are in the country illegally. I'm going to call them illegal aliens. So I dressed this kid down a little bit. So then yesterday, I start getting all these notifications. Chris Cuomo has put out a video threatening me, literally threatening my safety over this little fight. Chris Cuomo warned me. He said, quote, "Don't be a tough guy." And he says I'm wrong, that we're not allowed to say illegal aliens anymore. He said I was a bully. That's what he called me, a bully. Now, if you've ever watched these shows I'm on, I'm not the bully. I'm being bullied 24 hours a day. But Chris Cuomo said that Democrats and Republicans had already agreed to call them undocumented instead of illegal. That's not true. I'm a Republican, and I haven't agreed to that. I'm going to call them illegal aliens. And you know who else used to call them illegal aliens? Chris Cuomo. In fact, our friend Maze Moore on X put together a little supercut of Chris Cuomo saying illegal aliens. Guys in the booth, if you can cue up cut 2, I want to hear from Chris Cuomo using the phrase illegal aliens. Let's hear cut 2.
You are either for American citizens or you're for illegals. That is clear in his latest tweet. He's one of the most well-known faces when it comes to the crackdown on illegal immigrants in America. So what does the sheriff, Joe Arpaio, think about children being taken from the parents? But illegal immigrants aren't your enemy either. They're just not coming in the country the right way.
Chris Cuomo, illegals, illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, time and again, using the same phrase that I and virtually everybody else with half a brain cell in this country uses to refer to the illegal alien population in this country. Chris Cuomo said to me on his stupid video, be careful, you want to be a tough guy. There are plenty of tough guys out there, Cuomo said. You want to see how somebody can make you say illegal? And what are you going to do? Sue, tough guy? I mean, he had a complete and total psychotic break. And then he said, and I'll quote, so if somebody beats your, I'm going to say rear end, but he used a profane term. If somebody beats your rear end because you're being rude and disrespectful and causing division in the country, that's causing distress and pain on the streets and making people want to hurt one another, if you really want to be part of that, as the expression goes, F-A-F-O, don't be a tough guy. Chris Cuomo joins the ranks of Keith Olbermann, who tried to get me murdered a few months ago. Now Chris Cuomo is obviously encouraging people to commit physical violence. I don't know what I have done to these liberal, washed-up, hack, news anchor, New York types. I'm not sure what I did to these people other than one thing. Be more relevant than them. And that, friends, is Chris Cuomo's major problem. Okay, it's Thursday, January 22nd. It's common sense for the American people, and we are on the road in Little Rock, Arkansas, and we're coming to you live today from the state capitol in Little Rock. We are the guest of the governor here, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and coming up at 33 minutes past the hour, Governor Sanders is going to come out. Her office is right over there. And she's going to come out. We're going to have a bit of an extended interview, get her take on what's going on in the world, and talk about what she's doing here in Arkansas. I think she's one of the best governors in America. I'm proud to call her a friend and really grateful for the hospitality today. We're tracking breaking news, which we're going to get into at 22 minutes past the hour. Some of that breaking news has to do with some arrests that have been made in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in connection to the church invasion by the radical protesters that occurred on Sunday morning. And I'm going to ask my next guest about that as well. This is Elliot Williams joining the show today. He's a CNN legal analyst, former federal prosecutor, and senior official at the Departments of Justice and Homeland Security. Elliot, welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show. We have a lot to discuss today.
Not welcome back, welcome to. I have not been with you on this program. I'm usually hosting you on Sirius.
You've never been on here?
Congratulations. It's, but no, I haven't been on with you. So
Okay, your inaugural appearance. Well, we'll see how you do. We'll send the evaluation forms at the conclusion of the show. Elliot, you see on CNN, and he's one of our go-to voices when it comes to legal issues going on in the country. Actually, first of all, here's the reason you're here. You have a new book, which I think is going to do well. And by the way, I'm hearing from people who are reviewing it. You're going to in the reviews, FYI. The book is called 5 Bullets, the story of Bernie Goetz, New York's explosive 80s, and subway vigilante trial that divided the nation. That is what the book is about, and we're going to get to that in just one second. But I cannot resist asking you the question of the day. As I counted it just a moment ago, have been charged in Minneapolis, Minnesota with this church invasion. It's not clear to me, Elliot, whether Don Lemon, our old colleague at CNN, is one of them or not. I see conflicting things. Maybe you can clear this up for us. Who has been charged? Is Don Lemon one of them? And exactly how have they been charged here by federal prosecutors?
And I'm just getting the same information you are, Scott. I haven't I can't tell you for certainty what they have. Now let's talk about sort of where you can be charged for conduct like this and where you can't. Now, obviously, people know about the FACE Act legislation passed a bunch of years ago that really seeks to protect people's right and ability to go to church. It is a crime to impede or get in the way of someone's exercise of their faith. And if it can be found that these folks were intentionally doing that, that's of course a crime. Now, I want to put a caveat on it. Here's me as the lawyer. Want to put a caveat on that. It gets tricky when you're talking about the gray area between protest and attacking someone's church, right? Like, if you're a Catholic, you're a Protestant, you're Jewish or whatever, and I am impeding you from going to church because I don't like your views, now, of course, that's a crime. If it's I'm here and even entering the church yelling or expressing views, that might be seen by a court as protected First Amendment activity. Now, it's all going to depend on what gets established by prosecutors and how the people, each individual protester, what they're specifically charged with. Like, there are reasons one can be charged, but I just want to be clear. It's really, as a matter of law, not a slam dunk in either direction on this one.
So you're saying as a lawyer, you could think of reasons why a group of people, an angry mob, could bust into a church and start accosting the pastor and yelling at the parishioners, and they might not have committed a crime? It just
depends on exactly who and exactly what they did. When you frame it that way, of course, if it's an angry mob yelling at a pastor, number one, it could be an act of trespass, right? And that's a crime. The problem with churches, right, is that they necessarily by their nature are welcome. So there's a sign on the door that says that anybody come in. Like, so one can engage in behavior that I couldn't do at your house at a church. I'm just laying out the legal arguments, man. I'm not endorsing any of this. This is the kinds of stuff that folks will use to attack their indictments if in fact they're charged with a crime. But of course, even if we don't reach the point of convicting people for this kind of conduct, certainly entering churches and yelling or being disruptive, there are better ways for one to make their views known, even if they have a problem with ICE or even the individual pastor who's at the head of the church. There are just different ways to do it, even if you can't be convicted for it.
So according to one of these posts I'm reading here, it says one of the people charged is named William Kelly. It says he's being charged with conspiracy to deprive rights, which is a federal crime, and violating the FACE Act, 18 U.S.C. 248, for his involvement in the St. Paul Church riots. I assume that's what everybody's being charged with. Also, it is not – so there's these reports that Don Lemon, they wanted to charge Lemon, and then there's other people saying that a federal magistrate judge wouldn't sign off on it, but that the attorney general might be able to get around that. It's just really opaque to me what's happened to Don Lemon. I'm not sure you have any more current information than me, but I'd take it. I don't,
and it's – look, it's hard – as a general matter, it is hard to charge journalists with anything. It is a difficult issue because of the First Amendment questions I was talking about here. Even if someone is behaving in a way that some could see as disruptive, it gets tricky to charge them with a crime. And certainly if the world's getting shaken up by the fact that there are a lot of independent journalists now, Don Lemon being one of them, but he is still engaged in the act of what we would broadly regard as protected speech. It'll all come down to, again, specifically what was he doing at the time of the conduct that people think he should be charged with, and then you go from there. So, but again, it's just not as straightforward as folks are getting charged with entering a church, and then therefore it's absolutely okay to charge Don Lemon with a crime. Maybe, maybe not.
Well, we'll probably get more details on this here in the next hour or two. We'll keep an eye on it. That voice you're hearing, Elliot Williams, you see him on CNN, one of our legal eagles on CNN, former federal prosecutor. Elliot, you have a new book out called 5 Bullets. This is the story of Bernie Goetz. This story captivated New York City and really the nation in 1984 and in the months beyond. So for our listeners who don't remember this story or aren't familiar with Bernie Goetz, why don't we do this?
Yeah.
In a couple of minutes, give us the story of Bernie Goetz. Tell us what happened. Then we're going to take a break, and then I want to get into the book on the other side. Who is Bernie Goetz, and why did he need a book written about him?
And I would
Elliot
think that
Williams?
a lot of people who are listeners of the Scott Jennings Show who care a lot about public safety and think about these issues will remember this story. Bernie Goetz is a guy on the New York City subway in 1984. Says he was mugged by attempted to be mugged by 4 black teenagers, took out his gun, was not licensed, and shot the 4 of them seriously wounding 3 and really, really seriously wounding 1, leaving him paralyzed and brain damaged. Now, it gets everything else about the case is polarizing and complicated. From was he threatened by the guys or simply asked for money? That was a big question at the trial. And people, it's like a Rorschach test, one of those ink block tests. Everybody sees something different in this case, what they want to see. The big thing, though, and where it gets polarizing is that for many people, Bernhard Goetz was a hero. New York City was really, really, really unsafe at the time. Crime rate was through the roof. Homicide rate was through the roof. And he did what many people sort of felt they wanted to do and needed to be done. Many other people saw him as a bigot who just sort of opened fire on black folks. Very polarizing case. We can talk about it on the other side.
That's Elliot Williams, CNN legal analyst. He is the author of a new book called 5 Bullets, the story of Bernie Goetz, New York's explosive 80s, and the subway vigilante trial that divided the nation. I think your book, Elliot, is timely because we've seen other cases in New York City and in other places where the term vigilante has been thrown out. I want to get on the other side of this break, I want to get your compare and contrast the Bernie Goetz situation to some of the other so-called vigilante trials that we've seen. I also want to ask you a question when we come back. Think about this. Today, the Arizona Attorney General has more, in my opinion, than implied that the state's stand your ground law may allow people in Arizona to shoot at or open fire on ICE agents who may be out there enforcing federal law. They might think of themselves as vigilantes. We'll get Elliot Williams' thought on all of that. This is the Scott Jennings Show. You're on Salem. It's common sense for the American people. We're broadcasting live from Little Rock, Arkansas, and we want to have you come back with us after this break. Common sense. Stay with us. Elliot is next. Okay, they're telling me we have to talk about relief factor. I was under the impression that we're a well-oiled machine here, folks. We're one step above, by the way, of the AV club at your local mid-level high school. Okay, relief factor. If you have aches and pains, they're not good, and there's a way to get around it. It's called Relief Factor. It is a drug-free supplement that has, for thousands and thousands of people, relieved their everyday pain. We've talked to many customers around the country who have used Relief Factor. They're sending us testimonials. I've got a pile of testimonials here from people who say, I was in pain, now I'm not, and the intervening thing was Relief Factor. The 3-week quick start is how you should try it out. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. Ask yourself, how would it feel to be out of pain? And try it out on Relief Factor. Elliot Williams is still with us when we come back. It's Scott Jennings on Salem. The book is called 5 Bullets, the story of Bernie Goetz, New York's explosives 80s, and the subway vigilante trial that divided the nation. The author is Elliot Williams, CNN legal analyst, and he is our guest here on the show today. Elliot, your book, by the way, I should say, is out. It is available. You can go on Amazon and get the book. Did you yourself record the Audible version?
Oh, God,
Elliot?
yes. And I actually got a big kick out of doing the Audible version. I don't know how you felt about yours.
I enjoyed doing it, and I've listened to some of it, and it was interesting. They make you read it very slowly, a lot more slowly than I would normally talk, and I know there's a technical reason for that.
Now, well, here's the question I have for you. If you've listened to any parts of it, have you caught like chapters where you clearly had recorded one at 5 p.m. after a day of recording, and then the next chapter you hear it and realize, oh, that was like 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm refreshed and had just had a cup of coffee and feeling good. Your voice sounds totally different a few hours later.
Oh, yeah.
A bunch of those.
Yeah, you can sound different, and you can also hear it over time. Like if you do a 4 or 5 hour recording session, like you sound different in hour 1 than you do in hour 5. That's for sure. So the book is about Bernie Goetz. This was this vigilante subway trial in New York City. And you note that Goetz, in your book, had this feeling that the elites were failing to keep folks safe, and this in some ways led him to become the vigilante. I sense this is becoming more common in modern politics. Do you draw any lines between the Goetz situation in '84 and some of the things we're seeing in our current affairs today, Elliot?
Absolutely. I think a number of the biggest high profile, whether you want to use the word vigilante or folks who simply used violent or deadly force in public and got celebrated for it, many of them had in common this idea that elites, for lack of a better term, were not keeping the public safe. Kyle Rittenhouse, to some extent Daniel Penny, although he didn't really express many political views. He kept his mouth shut quite a bit. Daniel Penny, the guy who choked someone to death in the New York City subway, who was having a sort of a psychiatric episode. The big one, and this may come as a bit of a curveball to you and anyone else listening to this, but Luigi Mangione is another one who just felt that the existing social order was failing ordinary people. It was actually, and again, this is not anything positive about Luigi Mangione. It was a horrific act, and he should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. But if you look at what motivated or animated him when he's talking, a lot of it is all the elites and the fat cats aren't keeping us safe. Now, when I interviewed Bernie Goetz,
but Luigi was not under any imminent.
No, not at all.
CEO
and I want to be
United
clear.
Healthcare. Goetz was on the subway with people, and he argued that they were, in fact, threatening his personal safety.
No, absolutely. And I just want to make that absolutely clear. It wasn't a self-defense killing. It's more just someone using violent force and being celebrated for it by millions and millions of people. Now, Bernie Goetz, I interviewed him for the book, and frankly, no one has interviewed Bernard Goetz for a book. There's other books have sort of covered the subject, but no one actually sat down with him. He really sees it as a failure of the system. In fact, you were talking about Chris Cuomo earlier a bunch in the show and his comments about you. Bernie Goetz is obsessed to this day with Mario Cuomo, the governor of New York through the 1980s, who he blames for, like 8 times in my interview with him, including randomly sending me a photo of Mario Cuomo on the cover of New York Times Magazine. He just blames Mario Cuomo. Dude, like, don't get me started on my relationship now with Bernie Goetz, but because he's emailing me stuff all the time, but now, just his thoughts, but he feels like Mario Cuomo was the face of sort of liberal politicians who just didn't care and didn't try to take care of the public, right? And he still sort of lives rent-free in Bernie Goetz's head. But no, he truly believes it's the elites and the media. They go to the same parties, they scratch each other's backs, and they don't look out for the public safety of the public. You know what I mean? Public safety of the public. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we hear a lot of this conversation these days, and my suspicion is people are going to read your book. If they've not heard the story, they'll be fascinated by it. If they remember the story, they're going to learn things that you've uncovered, particularly in your interview with Bernie Goetz. Either way, it's a book that I think will be fascinating to people. The book is called 5 Bullets, the story of Bernie Goetz, New York's explosive 80s, and the subway vigilante trial that divided the nation. The author is Elliott Williams. It is available now. Go to Amazon. If you're looking for an interesting read on a criminal justice story that did, in fact, captivate the country and in some ways the world, Elliott's got it. And the reviews I'm hearing are going to be great. 5 Bullets by Elliott Williams. Get your copy today. Elliott, thanks for coming on. We'll take a break. When we come back, sitting right next to me will be the governor of Arkansas. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is here. You don't want to miss this conversation. Common Sense for the American People. Be right back. It is Thursday, January 22nd. It's Common Sense for the American People. You're getting it from Salem. It's the Scott Jennings Show. We're broadcasting live today from Little Rock, Arkansas. And we are in the state capitol, and we are in the governor's office as the guests of my next guest, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, one of the greatest governors in America. And she joins us live here on the Scott Jennings Show. First of all, thank you for the hospitality, and thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. We're so glad that you're in Arkansas, and I wish we were welcoming you with a little bit better weather, but we're really excited that you're here and excited for the message that you're going to bring to the people of Arkansas, and just such a big fan and supporter of yours, and so really glad that you're in our state.
Well, you're very nice to say that. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm going to stop by the Right to Life dinner tonight here in Little Rock, and look forward to seeing conservatives and people who believe in the inherent value of every human life this evening. It was an honor to get invited to do that. You referenced the weather, Governor. I want to start there. Arkansas is going to get some snow and some ice. You're obviously in charge of emergency management here and preparing for something like this. What's it like being a governor when you know you're going to get hit with what some people are saying is a once in a generation storm?
Well, right now we're kind of in the wait and see phase and really trying to make sure that we have resources in as many places around the state as possible, in constant communication with our Entergy and our co-op electric providers, trying to make sure that as much as we can, we prevent people from losing power, and that we are able, if people do, we can get it back on quickly, clearing roadways. And so working closely with the transportation department. We have a website called helparkansas.com, so we try to make it as easy for people as possible, give them one location to find out about road closures, where they can get assistance if needed, warming shelters, things like that, all in one stop. So we're trying to kind of put all the pieces together and hope it's not quite as bad as they say it is. That's my official capacity. In my mom capacity, I'm like everybody else. I was ordering gloves and snow boots because nothing we had last year fits this year, and seeing what could get delivered to our house in a 24-hour time span. And so our kids are hoping for a lot more snow. As governor, I'd like it to just blow right past our state and keep on going. But we have amazing crews through state police, through our National Guard, through our emergency management department that are all already on call and positioning in every part of Arkansas so that we're as prepared as possible to help people in need.
Now, I guess this will be the most significant weather event you've probably faced. You don't normally get this kind of winter weather here. Tornadoes you get and things of that nature, but as you start to prepare for it, give us an idea of what goes on. You're convening people from across your cabinet. You're convening the emergency services folks. Are you all also talking to governors in other states who are in the impacted zone here? Because obviously when the power goes out, it just doesn't go out in Arkansas. It goes out in a lot of states on something like this.
Yeah, thankfully we have a diversified power grid, and so I feel very confident in our teams, and hopefully we don't have a significant outages. But there is a lot of coordination. If by chance we get missed and our neighbors in Texas or Tennessee or Missouri get hit, we want to be able to help provide resources and teams to get on the ground, and vice versa. We're also very thankful that we have a secretary at the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Christy Nome, led a call this morning with governors across the country just to make sure we're all in coordination and letting other states know what resources we have, what things we may need, and trying to be as prepared on the front end as we can be. That we don't get to control Mother Nature, and so there's only so many things you can do on the front end, and one of our biggest things will be just making sure people get what they need as quickly as possible. And so there will be continued coordination. We do a daily call that started earlier this week in preparation, making sure all of the various teams and components are in constant communication and continue to provide service.
So I want to get into this call with Secretary Noem. So this is the federal government, Homeland Security, coordinating with governors. Are you satisfied with, happy with the level of coordination you're getting from federal officials as everybody prepares for the weather here?
Yeah, they've been excellent. We've had a great relationship with the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA, and they've been very responsive. It helps when we have a president, too, who takes our calls, and a secretary who does as well, and have been, unfortunately, Arkansas was hit with really bad tornadoes last year, some devastating storms that swept through our state, and we've been able to work in close coordination with the federal government to provide assistance for those communities that were impacted significantly last year.
I want to shift away from the weather, but I want to stay on the topic of coordination and cooperation with the federal government. And I want to talk more about ICE, not ICE Storm, but ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. I want your opinion. You're a governor. You're cooperating with, and local officials here in Arkansas are cooperating with the federal government when it comes to immigration enforcement. In Minnesota and in Minneapolis, that cooperation does not exist. In fact, it's in some ways an open state of rebellion up there against federal law enforcement. Can you tell us what it looks like in a state where you have cooperation between law enforcement agencies? There's no chaos here in Arkansas when it comes to enforcing federal law. Take us inside this cooperation and how it leads to harmony, really, on the ground for the people of your state.
Look, we want law and order. I think it is very simple, and frankly, it's something every governor should want. Why you would push back on that is beyond my comprehension. And so we want to work closely with federal law enforcement enforcement. We've been able to have great level of cooperation here in the state of Arkansas. Our goal has been to look for and help identify violent offenders and make that our priority. And that's where we've spent our time and had our law enforcement spend our time. And we've also assisted in other areas when we can help provide law and order, like we are in Washington, D.C. We have about 100 members of the Arkansas National Guard that are on the ground in D.C. And are preparing for an additional 90-day extension. Every single member that is there on the ground now volunteered to be there, and they've asked to stay because they see the importance of their mission. They see the difference that they're making, and that's what we want to be part of, is bringing law and order, removing the chaos. We've been able to do that in Washington. We want to continue to do that here in the state. We were able to help on the border as well when that was needed. Governor Greg Abbott called on other Republican governors to send National Guard troops to the border because back at that time, we had a president in President Biden who was not helping secure the border. And so it fell on governors to step up, and Governor Abbott did a great job of helping coordinate and bring a lot of Republican governors together to put troops on the border and really do, frankly, the job that the federal government should have been doing. Now there's a totally different mindset because we have a president who's actually leading and doing the job of the federal government.
The border is closed. We've had nary border crossing for the last 8 months. All the focus is really now on internal enforcement. And so here in Arkansas, I haven't heard one story about any sort of chaotic situation. I've not heard any stories about ICE agents clashing with local people. I've not seen any. I'm looking out the window. I don't see any rioting going on outside. I haven't heard of any churches being invaded. I mean, as it relates to what's going on here in your state and the reports you get on this every day, are you satisfied that ICE, CBP, all of the federal law enforcement agencies at play are acting professionally, doing their job, doing it efficiently? I assume some illegal aliens have been taken away from Arkansas. From what you've seen, are these people doing their job and doing it in a professional and lawful manner?
From everything that we've seen here in the state of Arkansas, yes, and that's why we want to continue that level of cooperation. At the end of the day, we have laws for a reason. We want to enforce them. We want people to follow them, and we're glad to be able to partner and have multi-agency coordination. I'm not saying there will never be chaos in Arkansas, but from what we've seen so far, we've been pleased with the level of professionalism and the ability to coordinate across, again, multiple agencies.
That's Sarah Sanders. She is the governor of Arkansas, and we're in her office today broadcasting this show. Thanks for the hospitality. Let me shift gears to education. ALEC, the organization, just released its new education freedom rankings. Arkansas came in third, so you're right near the top of the list. Sadly, where I live in Kentucky, I think we were 48. Not as good. The difference is we got a Democrat governor there. We got a Republican governor here. What did you do here as a policy matter in Arkansas to create this level of education freedom for the people of your state?
You know, this has been the biggest priority that I had coming into office, was to really transform education in our state. Just a few years ago, Arkansas would have been right there fighting Kentucky for the bottom of the pack. And frankly, that's why I ran, because I was tired of seeing Arkansas be 48th and 49th and 50th in so many key critical areas, specifically on education. And so we really wanted to flip the system on its head, and that's what we did through a 150-page piece of legislation. We like to say we were one big beautiful bill before that was a thing, and we didn't just tinker around the edges. We did everything from opening up universal school choice, and we did a phased-in approach where in year 3 it is now open to every single student in the state of Arkansas. But we didn't stop there. We didn't want that to be the only thing we were doing, because we knew there are a lot of different things that students need. It's not just about being able to go to a different school, but in the schools that they're in, how do we elevate the experience that they have? And one of the things that was really important was rewarding and recognizing our educators. And so we made the largest investment in public education in our state at the same time that we were opening up universal school choice. We gave every single teacher in the state a pay raise of at least $2,000. We raised our starting pay from being $36,000, which was at the very bottom. We were 49th in the country. Now we're in top 5, number 1 when you adjust for cost of living. And so to go from a starting pay of $36,000 to a starting pay of $50,000, that's a big deal in a state like Arkansas. It puts us on a competitive level with states like Texas and Florida and California, and that helps us recruit and retain a lot of our best educators. We also gave merit-based bonuses, and so last year we were able to award nearly 4,000 educators with up to $10,000 in bonuses, and we're one of only 2 states in the country that offers up to 12 weeks of paid maternity leave for teachers, which is a big deal when 70% of your teaching workforce in the state is female.
Right.
And so
you've taken care of the students and you've taken care of the teachers, and it's working.
And it's working. And so that's what we wanted to see. We knew that it couldn't just be a little bit, but we had to do a lot of big things if we wanted to see Arkansas move up. And we're really proud of the progress we've made.
That voice you're hearing, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You're going to hold on with us through a break because I want to ask you about your dad, who's former governor here, now ambassador to Israel. I want to check in on him. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us here. It's Common Sense for the American people. More with Governor Sanders when we come back. Live from Little Rock, Arkansas, Jennings is here with Common Sense people, and one of the most common sense governors in America is sitting right next to me, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. The natural state. I saw it down in the cafe. And by the way, you have a beautiful capital.
Thank you.
This year has been I know this sort of attitude is set at the top. You got it. You got it. And, of course, you've spent a lot of time in the Capitol and in the governor's mansion in your life because you were the governor here, and he's now our ambassador to – I saw him last summer when I was in Israel, and I'm going to see him again in February when I go over there. I assume you're talking to him on a regular basis. How is Ambassador Huckabee doing? He's the right man at the right – one of the most consequential diplomatic job we have.
Oh, well, it really – my dad was made for he's ever done in his life. This moment prepared him to be the ambassador. He's totally exhausted, but he loves every minute of it. And he's so passionate about the people and there, and such just I think a steadfast presence in what is a very chaotic and difficult place to be. But he's doing a chance to go with my family at Christmas. It's time to be there and experience and go to places where he walked. To hear my dad explain and tell and kids why Israel is so important, why he wanted to be there and sacrifice serving.
Could have picked any diplomat prepared in particular job than Mike. I mean, I think when he was telling Israel like 200 times or something in his life. He knows people in every corner of the country. He knows the history. And now with this Middle East peace situation going on, something that I think people couldn't have imagined. And it's in this war, bring home the living hostages for a lasting peace. That'll be better economic outcomes and security outcomes over there. You obviously were press secretary to President Trump. You worked there in the first term. Now you're serving as a governor, dealing with commentary or reflections on this time around, Trump 2.0, what he's accomplishing.
Obviously, I agree with you. Very biased. In your praise of my dad, I don't think there's anybody more qualified or better suited to be in the job that he's in. And I think that the president, perfect pick. But I also think that the president has done such a great job in showing courage when many people wouldn't have, even in the first administration, when to move, when he was willing to take on and continue a relationship with Israel and never once backing away from it. And then his willingness to take action in the early days of his time, getting hot. He has leaned in a way that has made me very, very proud of him being back in the White House, and also very thankful. My dad is in what was a war zone, and for him to bring that level of stability to that region of the world, I think I don't think have given him nearly enough credit for what he's been able to accomplish.
Got about a minute to go, Governor. I'll give you a personal question. You're raising a young family here in the governor's office. Great public service. Love you. They've learned about you and met you press secretary. Are we going to see Governor Sanders back on the national stage at some point in the future?
You know, right now my goal is to get reelected as the governor of Arkansas. November.
Will.
I feel pretty good about it, but you know, as you well know, the political environment can change any day. So there's only two ways to run. There was a famous politician that used to say that there's only two ways to run: scared, opposed. And since I'm not opposed, we'll run like we're 20 points behind. Proud of what we've been able to accomplish here in the state. I think people recognize that, and I'm excited for November.
Well, you're one of the best governors in the country. You will be reelected, and people all over this country are anxious to see you. That's all from Little Rock. That voice you're hearing today, Governor Huckabee Sanders. Well, it's common sense for the American people. Scott, thanks for listening.